come and take a nighttime drive with me. I'm just cruising down the road. It's about 9:30 at night. Nothing special going on. And this is a time for me that I like to think. And I like to just be alone on the road and just be with my thoughts. This is a good meditative exercise for me. So, I invite you to come take a drive with me and let's just chat. So, I think what I want to talk about tonight is, and I think I've talked about this a few times, but it always bears reiterating. But I want to talk about why I why I make these little diaries and post them online for people. So, about 2 years ago, I had an experience where my mind really opened up to the world and how the world works. I had a massive paradigm shift. And some call it a spiritual awakening, some call it enlightenment. There are a dozen different names for it. But it changed everything. It changed the way I thought about myself. It changed the way I thought about the world. It changed the way I thought about reality. And I began studying, just because I've had a interest in psychology anyway. But I began studying especially spirituality. It's always fascinated me. Religions have always fascinated me, even though I'm not religious anymore. But the concept has always been very fascinating to me. So I started studying spirituality and religions in conjunction with psychology. And I found that there are so many connections and understandings about our world that these two put together and have been trying to put together for centuries, millennia for religion and spirituality. And in that way, I awakened, so to speak. And I use that term, kind of loosely, not in a metaphysical, supernatural sense. I don't believe in the supernatural. I think everything has a natural explanation, even the things that seem supernatural. Am I saying that I don't believe those things exist? Most of them, no. Some of them, yeah, maybe. I can see how they could. But I still think they have a natural explanation. And the more that I've been studying what the religions have been trying to tell us for years, and pairing it with psychology, I've come to understand that they're all trying to say the same thing. Every single one of them is trying to say the same thing at its core, including psychology. The Buddhists call it nirvana or enlightenment. Christianity calls it kingdom of Christ. Psychology calls it self-realization. they're all the same. They're all the same. It's the same thing. It's the same understanding. And it is when the conscious becomes free to explore itself and can look inward at itself and realize that it is connected to a vast world, a vast network of other consciousness. I mean, we look all around us and there is life, and we are life. And we've forgotten how to connect to that. We've forgotten how to feel that. How to feel that connection. That is spirituality. To be able to be present in the moment, the feeling of joy of being present in the moment, that is spirituality. That innocent light that shines in a child's eyes, that innocence, that joy of fun, that is spirituality. And that is what we lose as adults. Why? Because society pulls it from us by forcing us to conform to everything, to these arbitrary rules of society. And we're forced to conform, and everything is negative. And it saps that fun away from us. And so we lose our way. We lose who we are. We lose our connection in order to fit in with arbitrary rules in society. And in doing so, we forget who we are. And what does that do? It saps our very being from us. Look at your lifespan. Look at your life so far. And I'm assuming that most of my listeners are in their late 20s, early 30s, maybe even 40s or 50s. But I embrace audiences of all ages. Again, this, as I've said before, these are primarily for me to get my thoughts down, but I welcome listeners, and I hope that it can help someone. So look at your life. 20s, 30s, 40s. Look at those years. What are the 20s, the teens and the 20s? We go to school, and I'm talking about primarily my American audience because that's where I'm at. We go to school, and we conform to the books, get a job, get good grades so you can go to a good college, and get a good job that pays well so you can save for retirement and then fucking die. And that's it. That's our lot in life. Maybe get settled down, have kids, buy a house. The fucking American dream. But yet, from an early age, what are we trained to do? We're trained to work. We're trained to work. That's it. That's all the school system pumps out is workers. Drones who don't know anything other than work. And so, work we do. Because the school system, the education system, the health system, the monetary system are all designed to keep us as docile and as placid as possible. Constantly pumping out shiny new gadgets for us to enjoy, new social media for us to look for that ever lovely ding of a notification just so we can get our moment of validation. Look at where we are. I mean, really look at where we are. This is our lives. This is what we are being trained to do. Day in, day out, and we don't even think about it. We don't even think about it. So look at our lives. We come up through high school, we're conforming, we're trying to blend in with the crowd, join the tribe, so to speak. And then we get to our 20s, and what are we doing? We're trying to conform, we're trying to blend in with and figure out who we are. And then by the time we get to our 30s, we're fucking husks of what we used to be. And right now, our 30s are the millennials. And I want to speak to my millennials for a moment. Look at how much shit we've had to see over the last 35 years. Look at how much we've had to deal with. All of this negative shit that we've had to deal with. It's been a rough few decades. And it's no wonder that so many of us are depressed and so many are killing themselves because they don't know who they are. They don't have a purpose in their lives other than day in and day out, go to work, come home, go to work, come home, go to work, come home. They don't have a purpose. We don't have a purpose. And by the time we're in our 30s, that little light that used to shine in our eyes is dead. It's not really dead, it's obscured. Is a better way of saying it. It's obscured by all the negative shit and the societal pressure that we've had to conform and adapt to, and it's sapped our very souls. Our very personalities have been pulled away from us because we cannot be an individual in our own society. Or at least that's what the society brings us up to think. So what happens in late 30s, early 40s? We start to realize that a lot of times. Not everybody. Not everybody. Some people never realize it. And some people do. Some people realize it way earlier. Some people realize it in their teens. And this is why I make these kind of recordings. Because I would love to see more people realize this. We need more people to realize what's going on. Because 90% of the people out there, 90% of the population does not realize this. They are completely unconscious to their own potential. So around 40, we realize this. And there's a reason that there is a phrase, life begins at 40. Now, personally, I'm 37. And I look forward to my 40s now. Because I see that, this life is a game. I can make it a game. I don't have to conform. I can do what I want to do and have fun and enjoy doing what I'm doing. And I want to be able to pass that knowledge on to someone in the future. I hope someone listens to this little road trip and says, hey, you know what? you're right. I don't have to conform. I can wipe away all of that negative shit that obscures that inner light, that inner spirit, that inner love of life that we had as kids, where every day was new, every day was fun. We couldn't wait to go on adventures. We still have that. We still have that. It's still there. Deep inside us, underneath all the pressures of adulting, it's still there. It's still there. But we have to be able to get to it. We have to be able to get under the years and years and years of trauma and shit that has piled on top of us for decades. We can get to it. And it starts with dealing with it. It starts with us not running from it. It's a hard feeling. You don't want to experience it. You don't want to think about it. But in order to let it go, you have to. You have to bring it up. You have to allow yourself to feel it in its entirety. 100% full. That's how we let it go. And the Buddhists have been harping on this. The Buddhists, the Taoists, so many religions have been harping on this for thousands of years. I told you I'm coming back to religion on that. The Buddhists and the Hindus and Taoists harp on letting it go. Letting that inner trauma go. The Taoists especially. Wu Wei. The art of acting without acting. You're not swimming up against the stream. You're just swimming, you're going with the flow. You still have control of it. You can still direct where you want to go down the river as you flow down the river. But you're not fighting the current. You're just going with it. And from there, when you go with it, you can just go where you want to go. You're going to be pulled down the river anyway. You can't get up the stream. Why are you trying? Just go with it. Let it go. They've been harping on this for centuries, for thousands of years. Okay? Even Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. And what he was talking about was that inner person, that inner connection. They're all saying the same thing. I don't know a whole lot about Islam. I have to fix that. I do. I honestly don't, because I was raised as a Christian, and there are still some biases there. Even though I've had Islamic friends, I've participated in Ramadan with a friend before. Okay, I have nothing against it. It's just I haven't taken the time to learn more about it. And that is something I intend to correct. But I can almost guarantee that Muhammad said the same thing. Or something right on the nose there. Now, am I saying that the gods that they represent, the deities that these various religions represent, are real or are true? No, that's not what I'm saying. I don't believe in gods. I believe that gods are personifications of human concepts. Now, that said, the impact in which those concepts have is very much real. I will not deny that. I can't deny that, because it is true. The impact that those concepts have is a very much real thing. It's pretty much the same as money. Money is, in and of itself, a concept. Something that we assign value to based on arbitrary things that we decide, arbitrary traits that we decide it has. This thing is useful to us, so it must be valuable. Money isn't a real thing. Not in its core definition. It is an abstract concept. However, the impact that it has on our lives is unmistakably real. So if ever there was a god for this world, it's money. I mean, if we want to consider them the same thing, because they are personified concepts made into a form that has real impacts. So yeah, I'm not saying that the gods are real in the sense that the religions tout them to be. No, I don't agree with that. But their impact is legit. And it doesn't take a blind person to see that. Sorry for all my blind people. It doesn't take anyone to see that. So why do I say all of this? Religions have their uses, but they are tools. They're tools in which to prime the brain to go within, to prime the self to look within. Some tools are good tools, some tools aren't. But they're all tools. They're all tools to explain the world around us and to prime ourselves to look within and discover who we are. Every single one of them. So you can call it, I'll come back to my original point, you can call it kingdom of heaven, you can call it enlightenment, you can call it nirvana, you can call it self-realization, self-actualization. It doesn't matter. They're all the same thing. Call it spirituality. They're all the same thing. Call it Holy Spirit. Whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. It is your inner self connecting to itself. Spirituality is the conscious exploration of consciousness. I hate using hate is a strong word. I very much dislike using the term enlightened when I describe what happened to me. Because to me it sounds haughty. Because I know that there are people that get this far better than I do, and I have so much more to learn. I prefer the term actualized. Understood is even is a good term too. I am understood, awakened. Someone who sees the wider perspective of things. And it's hard to be this way. It's not easy. Because the more I see, the more I understand about who we are as a species and what we're capable of. And to a lesser extent, where we're going or where we may go. And part of it makes me proud. Part of it scares the hell out of me. Part of it makes me so sad. It makes me so sad to see us suffer as a species, and yet we won't do any goddamn thing about it. Because we don't even realize we're suffering. We just go in, day out, not even realizing that we can change our situation. And it saddens me so much to see who we are as a people, as a species. But at the same time, I see our potential and where we could go if we could just pull our heads out of our collective asses. But yet, at the same time, so many that do know this information are actively creating systems to keep the other 90% unconscious. Because human greed is human greed. Why do we treat each other like this? Now, I'm not saying there won't be bad people in the world. There will always be bad people. Always. Because you cannot know good unless you know bad. You cannot, everything is contrasts. You can't know light unless you know dark. You can't know up unless you know down. So we can't know good unless we know bad. Without hell, what is heaven? Think about that for a second. Do you really want all good all time for all eternity? And we'll come back, I'll come to the word eternity in a moment. We need contrast. I remember when I was young, my mom I grew up in a Christian church, and my mom would tell me about how heaven was supposed to be this perfect place, this perfect paradise, and we would sing and praise God for all eternity. It's going to be perfect. And I'm like, that sounds boring as fuck. How do you not see that? And I'm like, wait a minute. So all we're going to do is just frolic around and be happy all the damn time and frolic and play, and yeah, that sounds great until you think about it. And you're like, that's going to get boring really fast. No, you need some moments of trouble. Because how can you know up if you don't know down? How can you know good if you don't know bad? And that was honestly one of the first things that pushed me away from religion. I was like, what the hell is that? That sounds terrible. And then I started thinking about it. I said I was going to come back to eternity. I remember the day I had these thoughts, where I realized that religion just made no damn sense in a literal perspective. And I remember saying to myself, I was at work, it was Easter Sunday of 2010, and I couldn't go to church that day, so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to have, while I'm at work, I usually had a lot of time to myself while I was there, and I said, I'm just going to have a day of quiet contemplation. And I began thinking on the concept of eternity. And I was like, what is eternity? Exactly. Like, we think of it as, colloquially speaking, we think of it as forever, or a long, long time. But we're so bad at conceptualizing such a vast number, we can't even think about it. We can't even conceptualize what forever even means. We can't even conceptualize what a billion is very well. Like, you ask somebody, what is a million seconds? How long is a million seconds? A million seconds is 11 days, if I recall correctly. I might be wrong in that, but I think it's 11 days. Well, then you think about it. How long is a billion seconds then? Can't be that much longer. It's 31 years. 11 days for a million seconds. 31 years for a billion seconds. So, it's very clear that we don't have a concept of that scale of numbers very well. So when you think about the concept of forever, it just goes on, infinity. But the thing is, we know relatively well that time and our universe had a beginning. Time as we know it and our reality as we know it, we know pretty damn well that it had a beginning. So that means if it has a beginning, that means that time is finite. By definition, it is finite. So eternity cannot exist within our reality. So, when I thought about that, I said, okay, the concept of eternity is just ridiculous. We cannot fathom something like that. And then I thought, eternity cannot be within the presence of time at all, because it's finite, and eternity is infinite. So I said, eternity must be the absence of time completely. It must be the cessation of time. Now this was, again, 2010 that I figured this out. And I think that is when my awakening really began. But it didn't really take shape until much, much later. I had to deal with some heavy shit before it all clicked. So, coming back to eternity, and coming back to the concept of being present in the moment, and I mean truly with the moment. In that moment, time stands still. You are always here and now. You're not in the past, you're not in the future. You are in a moment, one by one, like frames on a movie. But each of those frames, though it appears to move, is still just the present. It is always the present moment. And what is the present moment? But time stood still. That, my friends, is eternity. Eternity is being 100% in the present moment. And that is what people like Jesus were talking about. That's what he was talking about. Being present here and now in this moment. In this eternal moment where time stands still. And you don't think time seems to stand still? Let me show you something. I love the phrase, I think it was from, it was a movie quote. I want to say it was from Deep Blue Sea, I think. And I know it's probably from something else, but that's where I remember it from. Where LL Cool J's character says, he explains relativity in such a beautiful way. He says, and I'm paraphrasing here, I'm not quoting. He said, you get your hands on a hot pan, and a second can feel like an hour. And you get your hands on a hot woman, and an hour can feel like a second. The best analogy for relativity right there. Beautiful. Our brains can be in that moment. Right there in that moment where time stands still. We just have to train ourselves to do it. Or rather, we have to remember how to do it. Because we do it as kids. We do it as kids. We're in the moment. We're spontaneous. We say random ass shit and giggle and laugh and love just the dumbest things. I found a rock, it was cool, here, take it. These are the things that we do as kids that we just lose as adults. Nobody plays. And if it's playing, if adults are playing, it's usually not in the same way as kids. It's not truly in the moment. It's not being creative in the moment and just enjoying life for everything that it is. There's always this nagging asshole in the back of our heads that's talking shit to us constantly, day in and day out, judging every action we take, every choice we make, constantly criticizing. And it's a voice that we adapt from society, from our parents, from the people around us, everyone that we care what they fucking think about us. It all gets incorporated into this judgmental roommate that sits in the top of our heads and says, you can't be anything. It says, you can't. Actually, no, correction. It says, I can't. Because it believes that it is in control when it's not. You are. And I know this is a long-ass rant, But it's shit that needs to be said. It's shit that needs to be out there. Because when we realize this, we realize that we can take control of our lives. We realize that we're not NPCs in a role-playing game. We're the players. But yet, most of us go about our lives saying the same shit day in and day out, thinking about the same problems, running over the same scripted shit, the same scripted loops of conversations, talking about the same problems over and over and over again. Just like a fucking NPC in a tabletop game. They only have a set number of lines that they can say. And a set number of places that they can go. And this is how we live our lives. As NPCs. But yet one day, you wake up and you realize, oh shit, I can take control of my life. At least the things that can be controlled. I can direct my life. I don't have to go where the wind blows. I've got a fucking sail. And you cease to be an NPC. And you become a player character in your own life. And this is what more of us need to understand. How to be a player character in your life. This is what the religions were teaching. And I know I keep coming back to this because I'm seeing... I don't need to believe in the religions to understand what they're trying to teach. And I can hopefully bring it back to you guys in a simpler way of understanding it. Without all the dogma, all the rigmarole, all the liturgy, all the beliefs and biases and all that shit that gets piled on top of it. This is my attempt to strip all of that down to its base component. To its base. The Jeet Kune Do of religion, basically. Bruce Lee saw all of these different styles, all of these different martial arts styles. And they were all so formal, so rigid, all of these rules and stuff, just shit piled on top of it. And so what did he do? He learned them. And he took them and he stripped them down to their most base forms, what flowed. He got rid of all of the rigid shit that was attached to it. And he kept what worked. The base components, the cores of those styles, the core elements. And he fused them together into his own style that he called Jeet Kune Do. And the people that practice these traditional styles, they hated him for it. They hated him. They challenged him for going against the norm. They hated him for teaching other people these styles and the stripped down version of it. I think that was why he stripped it down in the first place, if I recall. They hated him for this. Well, this is what I see with religion. I see the core components. I see what it's really about. And this is what spirituality is. You hear people say, oh, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Bullshit. You're still believing in bullshit. Supernatural bullshit. True spirituality is knowing yourself. Now, if you know yourself and you can know yourself and be grounded in reality and still be able to connect with the world around you, then you're spiritual but not religious. And there are those out there that are like that. There are those. And all the rituals and prayers and all of that stuff, those are all tools. Every single one of them. Tools. You want to know how prayer works? I'll tell you how prayer works. If it works. Prayer works by priming the brain so that it can think outside of its normal programming. Say you pray to your God to ask for guidance. You are priming your brain to think multidimensionally, so to speak, and think about other solutions and be open to thinking about other solutions. And a lot of times the solutions will just come to you. And you're like, oh, well, there it is. And you attribute it to the prayer, but all the prayer did was open your brain up to the possibility of the solution being right in front of you the entire time. Another way prayer may work is as a meditation. Let's say a bunch of miners are trapped in a cave-in, and they're collectively praying. What they're doing is they are slowing down their metabolic rate so that they're using less oxygen. And in doing so, increasing the chances that they will be found alive. But when they're finally pulled out, if they're pulled out, but let's say they are rescued, when they're finally pulled out, they say, oh, see that? Prayer works. Yeah, it did, but not in the way you think it did. Not in the way you're thinking it is. So, yes and no. It primes the brain to see the possibilities, to see alternate possibilities. And it works as a meditation. Now, if you're just praying, please God, let my favorite football team win the Super Bowl, you're just being selfish, and that shit doesn't work. I'm sorry. You're just testing probability there. That's all. It might happen, and you might say, oh, well, that prayer worked. Now, you could also say that going and supporting the team and increasing the fan base could definitely work too. But that's a different kind of thing. And I'll come back to that in a minute. I'll come back to that. So, that's prayer. That's how prayers work. Curses work the exact same way. just in the opposite. Let me go back. Curses and positive reinforcement actually work the same way. Although curses are much, much easier because we already tend to have a biological negative bias. But here's how curses work. I'm about to lay all of this shit out on how this stuff works. So curses work like this. And they only work like this if the person you're cursing knows that they're cursed. That's it. It's the only way. So all of my witches out there, you want to hex somebody, this is how you do it. And I know that's a terrible thing, but I've been explaining the good, and I've also been harping on contrast. So guess what? I gotta explain the negative too. Do with it what you will, but know that it still comes back on you. You are still the guilty party. Curses work like this. Let's say someone did something to you that you don't like. And again, this is primarily directed at my witch audience out there. But it's important that everyone knows how this works. So let's say somebody did something to you, you don't like it, you're mad at them, and you want to curse them, you want to hex them. First off, please don't. It's just mean. Two wrongs don't make a fucking right. And you know that deep down inside, you know that. But here's how you do it anyway. Because you're gonna do it anyway. I know you. That's just how we work. You're gonna do it anyway, so here's how you do it. Properly. Say somebody pisses you off, and you want to curse them. You have to make it sure that they know that they are cursed. From there, you don't have to do anything else. Literally anything else. All you have to do is plant the idea in their head. And they'll do the rest of it themselves. This is because we have a very strong negative bias in our lives. Made even more so, even stronger by society. But we naturally have a negative bias. It's kept us alive. For eons, for millions of years, it's kept us alive. We've evolved with it. It's evolved to see predators and to assess danger. It's what makes us what we are today. So you want to curse somebody. The only thing you need to do is let them know they're cursed. Be it telling them, I'm going to curse you, putting some weird thing on their doorstep, you know, a note that says they're cursed, something like that. And they'll laugh it off at first. They'll just whatever, man, that's so stupid. You know, they don't even have to believe it. The messed up thing is, a part of them will. And it'll be very, very subtle. Very subtle. A part of them will believe it. And they won't even be aware of it. And they'll see a negative event happen, and they won't even think about it. They'll be like, whatever, it's just, whatever, it's not a big deal. Then 2 negative things happen in their lives. And they're like, they might joke about it, and they're like, it's the curse, yeah. Yeah, I got cursed the other day. Oh, it's so funny. Ain't that funny? What a coincidence. But they're paying attention to it. And see, we have a very good habit of creating what we pay attention to. And enhancing what we pay attention to. It's like you finally get a new car, and you're really excited about that new car, and then all of a sudden you start seeing them everywhere on the road. It's called synchronicity, and we're really good at it. We're really good at seeing patterns where there really aren't any, or they've always been there and we just didn't notice it, and then all of a sudden we notice it everywhere. We're really good at that. We're good at like seeing faces and shit. We're very good pattern seekers. So the cursed person, the so-called cursed person, sees another negative thing, and another negative thing, and another negative thing. And now, in the back of their mind, it may even be still unconscious, but they're starting to see that they're starting to think that maybe there was something to this. Maybe there was something to this cursed thing. And so they start paying more attention to it. And their life keeps spiraling and spiraling and spiraling down because they're thinking more and more and more and more negative thoughts and having more and more negative beliefs, making more and more negative choices. And down it goes into this downward spiral. Now let me make this clear. In order for that to work, it needs to start with a negative person. A person that already sees the world in a negative light. That's how you curse somebody. That's how curses work. On the flip side, positive reinforcement works the same way. Unfortunately, because of that negative bias, positive reinforcement is so much harder to have that effect. Positive reinforcement takes so much more to get the ball rolling. It's such a smaller unit in our minds. There's an old saying that says, you can have 99 attaboys, but you get one aw shit. And it means you can have all the accolades in the world. You can have the most positive reputation, but you do one thing stupid, and it completely strips away everything good that you've been. That's how powerful our negative bias is. So positive reinforcement, again, works the same way. But it has to be consistent. And after a while, it starts to take effect. It does. It starts to take effect in the mind, but it's so much slower. But once it gets rolling, once it truly gets rolling, it becomes a powerhouse of momentum. And we'll talk about momentum in a moment. I'm kind of just fusing all of my thoughts together in one talk. I'm just gonna ramble. This is gonna be a long ass session. So I hope you guys are there with me for this. But positivity, again, it works the same way as a curse. Just smaller increments, so to speak. So it has to be brain. Let's say the brain registers. Let's imagine the brain registers positive and negative as particles, as things. The positive particle is so much smaller than a negative positive particle. And again, this is just an analogy. I'm not saying there are positive particles or negative particles, though who the fuck knows? We may figure that out. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in this analogy, where the brain is seeing positivity as a particle and negativity as a particle, the positivity particle is so much smaller than the negative one. And so it takes so much more of that positive particle to build up and gain weight in the mind. Whereas the negative particle immediately registers, and it has so much more mass than the positive particle does. And so it has a greater and faster effect. So what happens with positivity? You encourage someone, you support them, you uplift them. And at first it's fought back. It's fought back with so much of that negativity that they're so used to getting. But you keep encouraging them, and keep encouraging them, and keep encouraging them, and keep encouraging them for years and years. And then, slowly but surely, you see the shift occurring. You see the shift occurring. I'll tell you about a friend of mine. And if you're listening, I'm not going to name any names, but you know who you are. Because we've talked about this. If you're listening, I'm so proud of you. A friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, a couple of years ago, I love her, but she was such a negative person. She would have these streaks of, I can't. And I would always try to tell her, yes, you can. You can do it. You can do it. And I'm always lifting her up and offering a word of positivity to her. And I'm like, you can do it. You can do it. I believe in you. You can do it. And every now and then she'd be like, you know what? You're right. I can. And she would get this. But she would have her moments where she's like, I can't do it. And I'm like, yes, you can. You can do it. You've got this. And it's always a positive reinforcement. And she's the type of person that will go out of her way to help everyone else and uplift everyone else. She's one of the wisest people I've met. And one of the most caring people I've met. And she's one of my closest friends. But when it comes to herself, she's so quick to tear herself down. And I know a couple of people who are like this. But this one, specifically, she goes back, we met quite a few years ago, back in 2017. So, just to clarify, you know who you are. But I have several friends who are like this. And I want to say I'm proud of all of you. But this one in particular, I'm speaking about. You know who you are. Now, at least. And she would have these moments she would have her ups and downs. And I've always told her, you can do it. You can do it. And slowly but surely, she's been telling herself that more. And seeing that she can change her own life and take back control over her own life. And it's a slow process. Growth is a slow process. You look at a tree throughout the day, throughout the year, we don't see them growing moment to moment, but they are. That's how growth is. You don't look at yourself in the mirror moment to moment and see yourself growing. But that's what we expect we want growth to be like. We want it to be immediate, and it's not. So coming back to my friend, over the last 2 years, I've watched her grow so much in her own self-image that it's absolutely astonishing. And she still has her moments, as do we all. Hell, I have my moments. There are still things I'm still fighting with. And we're all going to have those moments, because that's life. But how we deal with those moments is up to us. And I'm proud of all of the people who have taken my words to heart. I'm going to close this with this. I'm so proud of all the people that have heard what I've said. Just my random ramblings on stuff. And my document, because really what it is I'm documenting my own experience as I grow, as it happens. I'm documenting this experience as it's happening. The awakening process, the growth process, the changing of a mindset. I'm documenting it all as it happens. And it's wonderful. And I want to be able to, as I go through it, pass it on to someone who's yet to get there where I'm at. I'm charting the rapids, so to speak, on the river. And I want to be able to reach back up the stream and say, hey, this is what's coming. This is how you deal with it. And we can do that. Yes, everybody's life is unique. But we all deal with it in the same general ways. So I put these little talks up to help pass that experience on, so that others riding the same river can have a peek up ahead at the rapids and see that you're not going through this alone. We're all going through it. We're all riding these rapids together. Every single one of us. But we don't have to paddle upstream. We don't have to paddle upstream. We have oars in our hands. All we have to do is turn around and go with the current. We have to realize who we are inside and be. Just be. Just be. You want to know what the meaning of life is? I'll tell you the meaning of life. Wherever you go, be it the harshest environments, urban cities, Antarctica, the depths of the ocean, you find life. In all its wondrous extremes, you find life. And it doesn't need a reason to be there. It just is. It just is. It's just being. It's just living its life. Right there in the moment. That is the meaning of life. Is just being. Just be. Be here, now, right here in the moment. And be with yourself. Be with your inner self. Just be. You guys have a good night.